Here we go. Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth, the Education Coordinator for Marlene's Market and Deli. Tonight's special guest that we have with us is Lesia Alexander. She is the energy healer and animal communicator of Heart and Soul with Animals. And she also just released a book um, uh, earlier last year. And it's always an honor to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and can I share? Can you get me share screen? Ready to go? Okay. And let me, okay. These windows are all in the way. Here we go. And you gotta move, buddy. Let me just, there. Okay. So how many of you live with dogs? And if you could just put it in the chat, Elizabeth's going to be sort of taking care of that part. And how many people live with dogs?
I live with 2 dogs.
Okay. And then how many people live with cats?
And we have another person that lives with cats. Oh, and yes, another person that lives with dogs too.
And does
Oh,
anybody live with horses? Anybody horses?
I don't think so, but
Okay.
we had
What about
one.
birds
Oh,
or bunnies or turtles or any other than the dog, cat, horse? Anybody?
we do have one attendee that does live with a horse, and
Ah,
one attendee that raises guide dogs for the blind.
oh, fantastic. Fantastic. So, okay. Do you ever wonder what your animals are thinking, right? And do you worry when they act out or they're distressed? You don't know what they need. You're baffled as to what they want or what you can do, right? Well, my name is Lesia Alexander, as you know, and I'm founder of Heart and Soul with Animals, and I'm an interspecies communicator and energy healing consultant. And this work that I do, I didn't realize till recently started probably over 40 years ago. I was at the foothills of the Himalayas. I had just walked out of the glacial waters of the Ganges River, sopping wet, freezing cold. And I had this moment where it was like, oh, I've been anointed by Mother Ganges, Mother Divine, Mother Earth, and Mother Nature. And I am now, from now on, I'm in service to nature, all her creatures, including humans. And it wasn't until many years later, about 15 years ago or so, I was sitting in meditation one morning, and this was about 2 years after my dog had passed. And this is hints on my soulmate dog. I mean, one of them, like my number one soulmate dog. And he came to me in spirit and said, you need to do animal communication. I said, I don't do that. And he reminded me very clearly about how I had studied earth medicine, and a good part of that was animal knowledge. I had done animal journeys, animal blends, ceremonial kind of thing, animal vision quests. He reminded me how I used to go visit certain animals in pet stores and zoos on a regular basis and develop relationships with them. How I had, not a morning person, how I'd gotten up early in the morning when I lived in Colorado and went to be with the elk, at dawn in Estes Park. So I had done a lot of things. And then he reminded me more than anything of how I had lived with my own animals and that I was doing animal communication. So he twisted my arm, basically. I checked it out and realized, sure enough. And so I invested in my training, and I am a Healing Touch for Animals certified practitioner. And I just got through a weekend of being further certified in the advanced proficiency course. I've studied sound healing. And then Hinsa, my dog, also reminded me, he said, you've worked 30 years with gemstone medicine and with intuitive readings for people, and you can use this with animal communication. So I left my long teaching career, and now I support animals and their people. I definitely work with wellness and health in conjunction with medical professionals, veterinary professionals. I help with behavior issues, and my specialty is working with animals who have chronic illness, who are senior quality of life, end of life kind of issues. I work with them and their people. And if you are interested in any more of this, I promise I'll let you know a little bit later how you can go deeper with this. So May is National Mental Health Month, and this talk we're doing tonight is dedicated to this notion that animals, people who live with animals, they have better mental health, and it's also been shown that they have better physical health, heart and other kinds of physical things. And what I think the bottom line is that animals help us, and when we help them, they help us, and when we help ourselves, we help them. So we need each other. And those of you who are here, of course, know what that's like living with animals. And there are some really concrete ways that a lot of us are aware of how the animals can help our bodies. The closeness we have with a cat, that cat comes to us because they want that closeness. They want our body heat, of course, but they also want the affection and the nurturance. So they're getting a lot out of it, and we get a lot out of it. Our nervous system calms down, we feel loved, of course, that wonderful place of communion with an animal. And also, obvious, most people always, most people say, oh, having a pet, you get exercise. If you have a dog, you have to walk them, so you get exercise. And that is true, that it motivates us to get out and to actually move. But one of the things that I encountered in my work is sometimes there's more to it than that. And so one of the things that I really invite people to do is look at your animal. They're mammals like us, so we have some things in common. What are their needs? And then look at their species. Are they a canine, a feline? Are they a dog or a horse? What are the characteristics and the needs of that species? And then look at the breed, particularly with dogs. What kind of needs do they have? And then, of course, look at the particular personality of that animal that you have, that only you know in that way. And what are their needs? So we all have those physical needs for activity. But with a dog, dogs have the most amazing sense of smell. Part of what they were created for was to like how they navigate the world is through smell. So I had a man come in to see me. He was having trouble with the behavior. He and his dog were having trouble on their walks or their jogs or whatever, because the dog was not cooperating and was acting out. And he wanted his dog to cooperate with him. So we signed up for a program, we did some work. And one of the things that came up was that he wanted his dog to do his business. And then he wanted his dog to jog with him, pretty much jog the whole walk. And what I let him know that his dog was frustrated because his sniff quota was not being met. And he had a sniff quota to be healthy and happy in who he was. And that sniff quota was not getting met, and he was getting frustrated, and he was letting his person know. So one of the strategies that we came up with was to basically, the first part of the walk was for the dog. So the dog was on the dog's terms. He got to do whatever he wanted. Not everything. Some things are not okay to smell. Some places are not okay to go. But for the most part, he got to sniff whatever he wanted. And then when they reached a certain point, then the walk was on the man's terms. And then he could jog, and the dog would jog with him. And I always tell people, when you're going to start a new routine, always first talk to your animals about it. Send them pictures, let them know we're going to be doing this, and usually do it incrementally. Do a little bit at a time. Don't usually do the whole thing. That's what can be a little bit of a shock for the animal, and harder for them to adjust to, and would take longer. So he incrementally did that, and his dog got used to it, and so the behavior definitely diminished. But then when the next strategy was to add to that an off-leash walk. Once he and his dog had this routine, the dog understood what was expected of him, then I suggested he have an off-leash place. So they found a place where he could walk off-leash. And by then they had such a routine going that his dog basically would kind of wander off, come back, wander off, come back, and wander off, come back. And then when they turned around, that dog would heel of his own accord, not all the time, but would just come and walk with his person because he understood you gave me my part and now I'm doing your part. So that physical piece is important, but also to always look at what else do they need. So another thing that we forget sometimes is that animals are smart and they need mental challenge as well, and some breeds especially. So another example, I had a woman come in, she had a terrier dog, and you know how I had a terrier dog, and they are really full of it, and they get into everything. They can be quite busybodies, but this dog would not let her have people come over without, getting in her face. She was like, he was always at everybody. And then when she was trying to work or trying to be on the phone, or like he was really just constantly trying to get attention. So that wasn't working. And so what we discovered was that he needed work. And that's one of the things that dog after dog after dog after dog that has come into, that I've seen clients, so many situations where sometimes a dog doesn't have enough jobs. Dogs guard, dogs are sentries. I mean, they have those basic jobs. They're built in. We all know that. We kind of, yay, they're doing that. Okay. But if they don't have enough jobs, enough work, they don't feel like they're doing something and they're doing a good job at it, they will find something to do. And unfortunately, a lot of times it's something that's not really healthy for the household. And then we as the people will negatively reinforce. And reinforce is the word that happens. Even with negative reinforcement, they're still getting some kind of reinforcement. And unfortunately, sometimes it actually even leads to aggression in dogs. So it's very important to make sure they have enough to do, that they're challenged on all the different levels they need to be challenged. So this woman came to me, and the first thing I did, I suggested she go to obedience training. And she was a really kind, gentle woman. It's not, like I'm the boss and you have to do what I say because I'm the boss. That's not the purpose of obedience training. Obedience training helped her understand. And I think obedience training is a lot of times more often for the people than the dogs, but it helped her to understand that a dog needs their person to be in charge. You need to be the pack leader. So she started to understand that. And then in the course, they learned, the sit, stay, paw, the whole thing. Well, then the next step we did, because that started to help, she started teaching her dog a bunch of tricks. So how to stand up, how to dance. She would go like this and he would dance around on his hind legs, a few other things. And then the one that people just loved was, first she taught him how to jump over on his short little terrier legs over a broomstick. And then it was pretty easy to transition into a hoop. And he learned very, very quickly. He was very smart. So what she started doing when she had friends come over, she said, okay, before we get into anything, can I have like a few minutes? And she would take her dog through the whole routine. And invariably, they all loved it because it's really pretty charming, right? And the dog would be like, oh, I did my thing, and everybody loves it. But he was still, there were still some places where he was, being troublesome. So then she actually would have him do the whole routine before he ate in the morning and in the evening, and then give him his food. And he would do it. She would be, oh, such a good boy. And again, he was so pleased and he got rewarded. Doing a job and getting rewarded is really important for dogs. And they just need all those different parts of them challenged and met and fulfilled. So physical and mental, and cats do too. And more, because of, and certainly during the pandemic, I noticed that, some of the predatory animals were coming in closer as there were less people out and about. More and more people are keeping their cats as indoor cats. Now, cats are supreme hunters. They are amazing. I mean, with their claw, I mean, they really are. And that in order for them to feel confident and happy and supported in their lives, they need to be able to do things that express that capacity they have. They don't, if they live indoors, necessarily need to hunt, but they need to do things. So another situation with a very gentle, shy woman. She worked from home, and she had a young cat, and she had cats a lot, but she had this young cat, and now she was keeping her cat in the house. Well, the cat was coming into her office while she was working and being, as we all know, how incredibly insistent they can be, getting between you and the laptop. And, it was actually really quite disruptive. And she hated to do it, but she closed the door and kept the cat out. Well, that helped with work, but it didn't help with sleep, because she slept with her cat. And those of you with animals with whom you sleep, you know what a precious thing that is. And she just was not going to give that up. So she came and talked to me. So again, we found out some things that were going on, worked with those. But one of the things was her cat was bored. Her cat was feeling useless. Like, I've got all this, I got all this really hot stuff. Talking a little bit, I wanted about some of the ways that animals support, and we support animals, and they support us emotionally. And I really want to just take a moment and really appreciate the incredible service that our animals do for us. Anybody who lives with an animal knows that they are our therapy dog sometimes, right? Even though we may not be, quote, somebody who has, mental health issues, we all have moments, right? So animals help all of us, but they are therapy dogs for people who do have some mental health issues. They help our veterans. We have service dogs who help people, with seizure issues. They sniff out cancer. We have search and rescue dogs that help people who are, could die in a dire situation. We have dogs that help with reading. They help our kids. And we have cats who live in assisted living and then we have the therapy cats and dogs that come visit at hospitals. And I don't know if any of you heard about the cat Oscar, who lived in an assisted living home. And every time somebody was ready to pass, he would go and he would accompany them as they crossed. And these are incredible kinds of services that animals do for us humans. So let's just take a few seconds of silence to really honor and appreciate what they do for us. So thank you, our dear, dear friends. So another place where it's really important for us to pay attention so that we can support our animals. And again, in supporting them, we support ourselves. And when we support ourselves, we support them, is with emotional self-care. We know that when we're happy, they're happy, and vice versa. So it's that amplification process. When we play with them, they're happy, and then it tickles us and we're happy and they're happier. So it's just this lovely thing. And unfortunately, it also works the other way. If I come home from work and I'm really angry and stressed out, and I'm like, and my dog comes to greet me, and I'm just like, hey, whatever, it doesn't, then that dog's agitated, And then when they're agitated, we're more agitated. So one of the kinds of emotional self-care that I really recommend is if you have some emotion stuff up, take care of yourself first. You know, you can say to yourself, okay, what do I need to take care of this? Am I going to call a friend? Am I going to go do some yoga? Am I going to journal? Am I going to make a therapy session? Am I going to make sure to go to my support group or whatever? What do you need to do for you? And then you turn to your, you turn to your animals and you let them know these are my emotions. They're not your emotions. These are my feelings for me. And reassure them. You can say, I know there have been times when I've been really upset and I've like forgotten to feed you. I can tell you right now, I love you and I'm taking care of you. And it is not your job to take care of me. And that's really important because there is absolutely no purpose in my being upset. And now my dogs or my cat is upset. How does that serve? It doesn't help anybody. So it's important. Now, sometimes like with this works with children and with partners, all the things I'm saying work in human relationships as well. But sometimes when there's some really serious things to discuss, as parents, you might go to another space so that your kids aren't part of that. And this is a way of doing that where you're saying, this is mine. It's like saying, I'm going to another space. This isn't yours to deal with. But I do know that it is important to be honest with yourself and your animals and not try to hide it because they're going to know anyway. And that they're not going to know how to deal with your being in conflict, how to deal with that conflict if they're not around it. But it's important, again, to just really let them know this is not for you to take care of. Because here's the amazing thing that happens. When we take care of ourselves that way, let them know they're okay, let them know it's not their job, it opens the door for them to come to us and comfort us, support us. And it's really okay also to say, I'm really feeling sad and I'd love your support, but have no expectations and no putting, like, this is mine. This is an amazing thing because again, I might not do that, but because I know that my dog and cat are going to be affected by my behavior, it motivates me to take care of myself. And what do you know? Not only does it help my animal, but it helps me. And again, that's one of the incredible gifts that we have in living with our animals. So I was working with a couple with their animals. We were doing a program. And the woman of the couple called me and she said to me, I want to share this with you. She said, my husband and I, we were having one of our really big fights. These don't happen that often. And I walked in, she said, I marched into the other room and there was my cat. And because of the intensity of the, whatever was going on with them, she said the cat was like this cat in this photo here, like really like kind of freaked out. And she remembered what we had talked about. And she said, I know this is a lot going on here, but this is ours. We've got this. We're taking care of it. It's not your job to take care of it. And then she was angry, but she was able to contact that place in her heart of love for her cat. And she sent him a beam of that love. She goes, I love you and I'm taking care of you. And you don't have to do anything about this. We've got this. Her cat didn't shake off like a dog, she said, but she literally saw like something, like almost like the cat kind of like inside, and his whole demeanor changed, his eyes changed, his face changed. And then he kind of got back to his confident self and just marched out the cat door and just like lounged in the sun. So this works. It really works and it really helps. So we've talked about self-care so far, like in a physical level, making sure that we and our animals get exercise. We've talked about that we need that mental challenge and that it's uplifting and fun, and that we need that emotional care for ourselves and then for animals. And before we move on to, I'm going to share with you tonight a simple yet powerful process that you can use right away with your animals to really help that, amp that happiness factor. I want to make sure that I honor my promise and let you know that if you want to go deeper with this work, I'd like to offer what I call 5 consultations today, complimentary consultations over the phone for 30 minutes, where you talk about your top issues with your animals, and then we see if there's a fit for us together. So if you're interested in this, just go ahead and put in the chat. You can call it happiness and put your name and your email. So that would be, if you want to do that, go ahead and do that right now. And for showing up today, and just want to share with you, because I know you love your animals, I'd also like to offer a how to support your animals spring tips sheet that I have. So if you're interested in receiving that, go ahead, just put tips, your name, and your email address. So if you want to take a moment to do that, and then we'll go into our meditation for tonight. And Elizabeth, thank you for being in charge of the chat. So when I first started doing animal communication, I remembered my first animal that talked to me about the key and the importance of calm and peaceful state of being. I was working with a dog. This dog was a very lucky dog. She had fantastic people she lived with. One of them worked with animals. She had the best food. She had playtime. She had exercise. She had love like you wouldn't believe. And when I worked with this dog and asked her if there's anything she needed, she said, I need peace and calm, and I can't get there by myself. And I started having animal after animal in one way or another give me that message. And then I also noticed how all these other energy modalities were all of a sudden, like it was like this whole thing was happening in the collective. We're coming up with meditation type practices to do with your animals. So the practice that I came up with, or the process, is called practicing presence. So what it does is it reduces your own thinking, and then in a sense, you're in training with your animal, that you're getting into a state, you're inviting them in, you're showing them, you're modeling the energetics of it so they can click in. So because animals who live in our human world, we're very busy, there's a lot going on. They're also like a lot going on in their heads, and they need to learn to decompress. So in this process, the thing we're doing is we're reducing thinking, so we have a peaceful and calm state of being. Now, the way we're going to do this, and we're going to practice this together, is we focus on 3 senses. First, we focus our vision on one point. And it's been shown that when we have reduced thinking, we're able to keep our vision in one point. When we're thinking, our eyes will tend to go all over the place. So that actually helps us with that. So this is an eyes open kind of meditation. The second thing is you focus on sound. You might choose to just focus on one sound, like if you have a clock, an old clock that actually ticks. So that's an example. You might want to focus on that, or just the ambient sound around you. So vision, sound, and the third thing is that you notice the physical sensation of your body. And what I like to do is I like to put my hands on my thighs, and then if I kind of lose that sense, I just gently press down. Another one is people will use their forefinger and thumb and just hold it and then squeeze a little bit just to, okay, let's get back in the body and the physical sensation. So I'm curious here, how many people have a meditation practice? If you would put that in the chat. Yeah, me too. Yeah, I do.
We have 2 attendees saying yes.
Wonderful. And
Oh,
how many of
3.
you have 3? How many of you have experienced meditation, whether you have a practice that you do or not? You know, have you ever tried it or experienced it?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So most of you will probably relate to this experience that I'll be sharing with you. So many times when I meditate, even after meditating for years, and I meditate in the morning, so I should be nice and calm. It is not always the case. Sometimes my life gets very busy, and I'm just wound up more, even earlier in the day. So I sit down to meditate, and I'm all over, and it's uncomfortable, and I don't want to be sitting here and doing nothing. It's annoying. It's there's resistance. I'm whatever. But by simply allowing myself to observe, to notice, oh, my mind's all over the place. Okay, then it's like I kind of decompress a notch, and then it's like, oh, there's that thought, there's that thought, there's that thought. So I'm able to then notice, and after a while, there's less of those thoughts. So in this meditation that we'll be doing this evening, so you're focusing on 3 senses, and then when thoughts come up, just say, oh yeah. So for example, oh, lawnmower. Now the thing that happens sometimes, we'll go, lawnmower, I wonder what Jack across the street is doing. And then you start going, it's like, whatever, at whatever point you notice, oh, I'm thinking, just notice it and let it go. So that's our work. Now, what we're wanting to do is get our animals, if there's on a scale of 10 to 0, we want our animals to go down to 0, not even 1. We want to teach them to go to 0, where they are in a healing trance. So that's when their body is completely relaxed, their eyes are closed, their breathing is soft, but they are not asleep. They are very aware, but very relaxed, and they feel very safe, very calm, and very trusting at those times. So that's the ultimate objective of this process that we're going to do, but we do a little bit at a time. And so because animals don't have the kind of cognition that we do, we're going to help them. So if you start doing this, and your animal might start kind of coming down a little bit, if they're sitting, they might lie down. If their eyes are open, they might close. If they're lying down, they might roll on their side or not, because each animal is different, and some will just take them longer to get to this place. So if they start going there, you're doing your thing, you're sitting in a way where you can watch them peripherally. And this is not like, if they come to you, if they have a neediness, this is not about reacting to their need. This is about actually letting them find their own quiet place, not by interacting with them, because that's just going to bring more thinking and more interaction, by just being in the present here and now. So you're going to peripherally watch as you focus on this point. And if your animal comes out of that kind of going down kind of place and starts chewing on their paw or scratching or even moving around kind of restlessly, come out of that meditative state and notice. You can notice it by sending, oh, you're scratching. Or you can say it out loud, oh, you're scratching, and wait until they're done with that cycle. And then they're like, okay, I'm done with this. Then go back to that focusing again on your senses. And some animals, what will happen is when they do this, stuff will come up, and it's a little bit much for them right away. So we stop. If they're like, that's it, I've had it, then that's it. Let them lead. And that what I know about animals is that stuff will come up, but if it comes up, they release a little bit through some physical activity, they come back down. Once they release it, unlike we humans, they don't pull it back. When they let go, they let go. So this is very helpful to be able to do that for our animals. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to ask you to just spend 1 minute doing this on your own. And then we're going to invite our animals in to wherever we are, if you want to do this with your animals. And I would even say that it's not a bad idea to close the door, just to give them a little bit of opportunity to sort of get used to this energy. And they'll let you know what they want. But sometimes if it's something new, they're like, oh, I'm out of here. And they go right out. But just give them a chance. And if they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. And that's okay. We're not going to push this, just doing this a little bit at a time is really the way to go. So why don't I'm going to actually set my timer here so that we have basically 1 minute of this for ourselves. So just take a moment to get really comfortable where you are. Find a place that you want to focus on. And this particular meditation does ask that we don't move around. You know, if you need to move around, of course, I'm not one that you have to force yourself to be still. You know, you will know that, but make an effort to be as still as you can. Focus on something. And I say the thing about moving around is sometimes I'll focus, I'll go, oh, that's not comfortable for my neck. So then I need to find the place where, okay, then that's okay. Focus on one point, listen to the sounds, and feel your body, feel that physical sensation of your body. So let's take a few, maybe 3 deep breaths first. Yeah. And then just go ahead and focus on a point and begin. Great. Beautiful. So now take a moment and, you know, if you choose to arrange it so that your animal companion or companions, you know, if you have more than one and they want to join you, that's great. You know, see how each one of them responds. So we'll take just a few moments to do that. Okay, so get ready to do this again. You know, see if you can position yourself so that you've got your vision focused on a point, but you can observe your animal. And remember, when they start, you know, doing something, pause and notice them until they're back down and then go back. So we're going to go ahead. Let me get our set for 3 minutes. And also just notice how when we are still, how time stretches. All of a sudden, time is so spacious. So let's take 3 minutes and do this as a for our animals and for ourselves. All right. So let's gently come back. And does anybody have anything they would like to share? Did you notice anything happening? Sometimes this, at first, it's just, you're just sitting there and they're just sitting there and not much happens. But did anybody notice anything they'd like to share? Yes.
Yes. So my cat had joined the meeting when we got started. And when it was the segment just for my meditation, she goes, I'm gonna get off the bed and let you have your space. And then she sat on the floor next to my sleeping dog. And then when it was the animal segment, she walked down the hallway and sat outside of the door and just watched me. So I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yes.
and one of our attendees says, I feel thoughts settling down. Time feels more spacious.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So again, trust that doing this with them, eventually they will get the benefit. They will get the benefit. So, that speaks to regular practice. And with animals, I think any kind of things that you decide to do with them, it really helps. Cats and dogs are speaking mostly. I would say most of our animal companions, it really helps if we have regularity about it, so that it's like, once a week, or every afternoon, these 2 afternoons, there's something about that, because they have a keen awareness of time. They don't think of it in terms of, days and weeks and have the, English language for it, but they understand the cycles of time very keenly. And they know when those times, as anyone who knows, like, they know when things are going to be happening, not just by what we're doing, but they know. And so there's something about having some regularity. So even if you just do this once a week and you let them know, hey, we're going to be doing this once a week, and I want you to come on board. I'm inviting you to be with me and learn how to have this calm space, where we can be very safe together, where we can build this bond that we have. What happens when we take this practice, to its fullest, when we are able to get our animals to that, what I call that healing trance? That's the place from which they learn things. That's where they can reconfigure themselves. Like they may feel like, have this sense that something's a threat, which we know really isn't. It is from that place that we can desensitize them. It's from that place that they might be in that place. We introduce this thing, incrementally, always incrementally, and they're like, oh, and then we bring them back down and they're like, oh, and then we introduce it again. They're like, oh yeah, I'm good. So it's really, I've seen this work incredibly. So that's just one part of it, but it really helps them to trust you, because they know that they can trust you to get into that place where they're not afraid, they're not anxious, they're not agitated, where they feel really safe and peaceful. So always build incrementally with all these things. And like I said, this is where the magic happens, when you get to that place. And again, healing them is healing for you. Healing for you is healing for them. So that's what we've got today. So we've got our physical exercise stuff, doing things with them. We've got our mental challenges, playing, uplifting for them and for us. We've got that emotional care that then allows us to have that bond in a really healthy way. And then this last piece, the practicing presence, I kind of think of it as spiritual. It's that place where, when we get into that state, I don't know about you, but when I get into that state with my animals, it's an amazing feeling. I'm aware of myself, I'm aware of them, but we're just two parts of this whole big web of connected oneness. And there's this incredible feeling of like, okay, it's good. And that's good for all of us. That's good for all of us. So thank you so much for coming today. and really wishing you, the wonderful gifts of sharing your life with animals. I know that I, you know, I I wouldn't have a life any other way. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lessa. That was fabulous.
Okay.
Well, we are going to say goodbye to our Facebook Live friends. Thanks so much for tuning in, and definitely stay in touch.